presents this program in color.
Hold it. I think you're going to like this picture.
Ready? Go.
Here's Mac Murphy. He's the man of the family.
Nothing more.
Here's Mac Murphy. It's the show we promote.
I don't know, those last four guys were pretty good.
Never been in a press box. I talk with the jocks through the locker room. Don't get serious.
How you doing, everybody? Murph with you from now until 2 o'clock. Hey, we have a lot to cover today. Murph driven to you by ChevyDriveChicago.com. Now, originally, a few days ago, working out today's show ideas, with Jay's. Jay, you back at the ranch? We're having a great time here at Shoeless Joe's.
Yeah, Murph, sounds like a good time out there.
Oh, well, it'll hopefully remain as great as it is right now for the next 2 hours. Here's the thing, Jay. We thought that today would be a great day to talk a little baseball because, well, we're not going to be reviewing last night's Bulls game or last night's Blackhawks game.
Right.
So early in the week, we said, you know what? We better just get into some baseball, which we are going to do in the 1 o'clock hour, correct?
Correct.
What do we got? Jim Callis coming on around 1 o'clock.
Right, Jim Callis from Baseball America.
Baseball America, top guy over there. Mark Gonzalez, White Sox reporter. We'll do Cubs. We'll have plenty of that. But, Jay, I think we must talk a little more because this topic, as they say in Hollywood, has legs, right? We've got to talk a little more about the Bulls and the Blackhawks more than we really thought earlier in the week. Now, let's do this, Jay Zawoski. I'd like to, first of all, set up a text question, 67011. Now, I don't know how you guys do it back there, but I'd like you to have it ready to go with 4 different letters. The letter M as in Murph, B as in boy, H as in hello, and F as in forget about it, okay? MBHF.
MBHF,
I
okay.
said it first. All right, now, here's the text question, 67011. Which sport, M for Major League Baseball, B for basketball, H for hockey, or F for football? Which sport are the referees, the umpires, the officials, which sport are they most intimidated by the home crowd? Now, I want to get rolling right now with a text question. Help me out quick, 67011. Murph, the sport that the umpires, the referees, the officials are most intimidated by the home crowd, M, Major League Baseball, B, basketball, H, hockey, or F, football. Jay, you're a longtime hockey guy. I want to open up the phone lines now at the 312-644-6767. Jay, you're a hockey guy, but here's my first question for all the Bulls and Blackhawks fans out there right now. Give me a call. Which of the two sports, basketball or hockey, is more violent? Which sport, basketball or hockey? We're talking NBA, NHL, not high school, not college, not rec league, not semi-pro. Is the NHL or the NBA the more violent league? Which sport is more dangerous? Which sport is more physical? Jay Zawoski, you're as big a hockey fan as I know out there. You would think 644-6767. Which sport is more physical, more violent, more dangerous?
Yeah.
Basketball or hockey? What do you think off the top of your head everyone would think right away in the car?
I think hockey off the top of my head, just with
Sure
all
you
the
would.
checking and the fighting and the speed of the game.
There you go, the fighting. Oh, they're fighting all the time in hockey. They're banging each other into the boards, right? Hockey is that violent sport.
Yeah.
It's physically dangerous and violent for those poor hockey guys out there. And the NBA is almost like an old George Carlin, remember? Baseball, you sacrifice. Football, you throw the bomb. Hockey and basketball. This would be laughable if it weren't so, I believe, interesting. Jay, you're going to vote for your favorite sport, or are you going to think this one over?
Let me think it over for a little bit. I'm going to think it over for a little bit. The word violent is the interesting,
right.
That's the interesting adjective there.
Okay, thank you, Jay Zawoski. 644-6767. Which sport's more violent? Which sport do you have a better chance of being injured? Being a member of the Blackhawks or a member of the Chicago Bulls? Now, here's what I would do if I were Vinny Del Negro. I'd like to hear if you think this is a good idea. When the game starts tonight, when the Bulls line up, you know who my 5 starters would be? Here's what I would do. Because there's a loophole in the NBA rules that they're not prepared for. Obviously, the NBA refs aren't prepared for a whole lot. You know what I'm getting tired of? Let me sidetrack. You know what I'm getting tired of? I'm getting tired of that phrase that I hear over and over and over. The referees should not determine the outcome of the game in the final minute. How many times have you heard that now, either on the score, read it in the paper, your friends around work? How many times in the last 24, 48 hours have you heard this phrase? 100 times. 200 times? Here it is. In the NBA, the referees should not determine the end of the game, the final minute. They should not determine the winner. How many times have you heard that? Well, let me ask you this. Did not the referee determine the game in the final minute, in the final 2 seconds of overtime? Everyone keeps saying, oh, it's such a convenient, it's a hard foul. So what, in the rule book, there's soft foul, hard foul, flagrant foul, and flagrant 2. Number 2. I never saw soft foul in the rule book. It's a good, clean, hard foul. Okay, I can buy that. But I don't buy this. In the NBA, the referee should not determine the outcome of the game in the final minute. Because they did just that. By not calling the flagrant, they indeed did determine the outcome of the game. So I don't know how everyone can stand around thinking that they've, got this figured out and say, come on, Murph. The NBA, the refs never determined the outcome of the game in the final minute. Well, they did just that. And here's what I would do if I were Vinny Del Negro. Here's my starting 5 tonight. My starting 5, Lindsey Hunter, Linton Johnson III, Aaron Gray, Tim Thomas, and they got a guy named Roberson. Here's a guy I don't even know his first name. So here's what you do, Vinny Del Negro, because the NBA doesn't know how to handle violence. They don't know how to handle flagrant fouls. They don't even have a rule in for what I'm going to propose. You start these 5 guys, Lindsey Hunter, Linton Johnson III, Tim Thomas, Aaron Gray, and Roberson. These are the 5 guys that never play. And you know what they do the very first minute? You got it. One of them holds down and the other guy breaks a jaw. That's what you do. Now, I'm not for violence. In fact, I am still appalled by what happened in the final 2 seconds of the overtime game. But you're a whiner, Murph. Oh, you're whining. Call it what you wish. The NBA is a more violent sport than the NHL. And I see the phone lines are starting to light up. I hope I have a few people saying that hockey is more violent than the NBA. Because it's not. Number one, you got padding, and if the basketball players start wearing full padding, the minor little shoulder pads, a helmet, then you know what? Maybe I'll go your way. But here's what you do to Rondo on the tip-off. You have Linton Johnson III trip him, and you have Aaron Gray fall on him and give him a forearm shiver in the jaw and bust it. Now, if the Bulls did that, what would the referees do? Now think about this. Here's what I'm pointing out. I'm pointing out that there's a flaw in the NBA rules, that they cannot control violence. And here's why I make this preposterous suggestion. If Linton Johnson III started, and on the tip, he held Rondo, and Aaron Gray did a forearm elbow to the jaw and busted his jaw, you know what would happen? There'd be a whistle. There'd be a flagrant. Maybe a T, and 2 bums that aren't going to play would be thrown out of the game. And their best guy would be carted off on a stretcher. Now, what would the NBA say about that? 644-6767. Hey, my guys, Jack Phelan, you gotta see Jack.com. Why? Jack Phelan Chevrolet, home of the GM Total Confidence Package. 5 years, 100,000 mile, the powertrain warranty. You get the OnStar, get the vehicle value protection. Check it all out. Where? Jack Phelan Chevrolet. You gotta see Jack.com. 644-6767. Referees shouldn't determine the outcome of the game. That's why they don't blow the whistle. Well, they did determine the outcome of the game. Let me ask you another question. Why does the NBA allow Kevin Garnett to sit on the bench in street clothes? Now, think about this. When let's look at the NHL. When Patrick Kane, for instance, was out for a few games with the knee, was Patrick Kane sitting on the Blackhawks bench in a $1,000 suit of clothes, screaming at the other team? No. The NHL doesn't allow a guy in street clothes that's not on the 12-man active roster to sit on the bench. Let me ask you this. In baseball, you ever see a guy on a disabled list? Let's say the Cubs put Ramirez on the DL. Is Aramis Ramirez? Let's say the Sox put Jim Thome on the DL. Is Jim Thome, are they going to sit in street clothes on the bench and trash talk the other dugout? No, they're not going to be allowed in the dugout. They're not going to be allowed in the National Hockey League bench. But the NBA, for some reason, they allow everything to just go on. And then what do? Then they scramble and try to do damage control, if that's what you can call what the NBA has announced, that under further review it was not a flagrant foul. What's interesting, Casey Johnson from the Tribune, he had a report the other day, and he printed the NBA rules on after a flagrant foul, if the player is injured, this would be Brad Miller, and if he's unable to shoot the free throws, if it is, listen to this, if the offended player is injured. Well, Brad Miller was injured, and you can't tell me that he wasn't half concussed when he missed that first shot, and then, of course, he tried to bang the second one off. Here's what the NBA writes. If the offended player is injured and then unable to attempt the awarded free throws due to flagrant or unsportsmanlike conduct, his coach, Vinny Del Negro, may designate any eligible member to shoot. Isn't this interesting? They use the word unsportsmanlike in their own rule book, along with flagrant. So they have already, in the NBA rule book, told you that even if it's not flagrant, it could be unsportsmanlike. So if you're one of these people that's saying it was not flagrant, even though you are 1 out of 100 out of step Charlie, but that's fine. That's what makes sports. You can have your own opinion, like belly buttons. Everybody has one. If you believe it was not flagrant, are you going to tell me it was a sportsmanlike move? If you want to call up, leave a line open back at the ranch. We're on the road today. Jay's right. Leave one line open. I'd like to hear from a Bulls fan, a Celtics fan, a basketball fan that wants to call in and tell me that the move by Rondo on Brad Miller was sportsmanlike. That's what I want to hear. Back in a flash, it's Murph on the road. We got baseball coming up. We'll get a final recap of the Bears picks from our guy, Dan Shanka, over at our lads. We're right back on the beat. The NBA, they got a mess. And they got referees that don't know how to handle it. And they have a rule book that doesn't know how to handle it. Other than that, everything's fine. And the Bulls are going to win Game 6, and they're going to win Game 7 because they're finally pissed off.
Return to the Murph Show, live from Shoeless Joe's Ale House in Rosemont, for more of the Chicago's biggest sports nut live broadcast, presented by Planters Big Nut Bar, Apple Vacations, and Shoeless Joe's Ale House on 670 The Score and 670thescore.com.
I don't know how that happened. Welcome back. It's Murph. All right, our text results are coming in right now. Very interesting. Text me, 67011. Which sport are the referees, the officials, the umpires? Which sport are the officials least intimidated or most intimidated is what we want to find out by the home crowd. Let's say the most intimidated, and right now you can vote M, Major League Baseball. That is a big fat 0 right now. I'm not surprised. You can vote F for football, H for hockey. They are both tied at 10%. And, of course, no surprise, you are correct again, scoreheads. 80% of you say basketball is the sport where the referees are most intimidated by the home crowd. Let's go to the phones. I'm asking you, which sport is more violent, the NHL or the NBA? And I don't notice. I got an email here. Since when did Todd Hollandsworth become the voice of the Cubs? All of a sudden, Todd Hollandsworth is freaking everywhere. Todd Hollandsworth, why is he the voice of the Cubs? That's what I'd like to find out. We'll talk a lot of baseball between now and 2 o'clock. And Derek Lee, I would suggest that someone sends him to the eye doctor. No one can do what he does. Continually miss pickoff throws at first base. Twice in a week. Perfect pickoff throws. Bang, right off his glove. Really didn't even touch it. Hit the umpire to save him an error. And yesterday, a surprise push pop-up bunt by the cleanup hitter for the D-backs, and he whiffs on it off the tip of his glove. A little leaguer would have caught it. Nobody could fall apart as quickly as Derek Lee has without a logical explanation. You know what it is? He either needs glasses or he's wearing bad contact lenses that he hasn't had an examination, or go get LASIK. Let's go to the phone. Let's go to Park Ridge. Carmen on the score. Hello, Carmen.
Hey, Murph. I'd like to talk to you about that Kevin Garnett situation with that picture in the Sun-Times.
Well, let me ask you this for anyone just joining us. In baseball, if you're not on the 25-man roster, you don't sit in the dugout. Jim Thome goes on the DL. Aramis Ramirez goes. They don't sit in their suit and tie on the bench. Hockey.
I've had no problem with him sitting on the bench.
Well, then hold on. Well, wait a minute. I'm just asking you, which league do you agree with? 2 leagues that say you can't do it, or football and basketball which says you can? I'm asking you, which do you prefer?
He could sit on the bench.
Which do you prefer? It's a simple question.
On the bench.
Okay, so you would prefer in baseball a bunch of knuckleheads in their suit and coat, and in hockey, Patrick Kane with the bat, and he's sitting in his suit and coat. That's fine. Okay, now continue, Carmen.
He's on the bench. He's taunting a player. He's literally taunting. Why isn't he penalized for this? Why isn't that a technical? He's in somebody's face. Now, if this was any other player, Ben Gordon is not the type of person to get in anybody's face. Mm-hmm. If he got into anybody's face like a Shaq or somebody, Dwight Howard, okay, there'd be fisticuffs on the court floor.
Well, you're exactly right. Number one, the NBA has no rule book rule for a lot of the things that are occurring. They're caught with their pants down, and it should be taunting. And, Carmen, you are my caller of the show. You're going to go visit my friends at Brown's. Lunchtime beefs and Brown's, it tastes better. Hang on, hook up my guy Carmen from Park Ridge.
Thanks, Murph.
Yeah, why is there no technical? For taunting. That's what he's doing. After Brad Miller gets a 2x4 across the head, and Garnett gets real brave and starts punking the Bears. Let's go to the Bullies. Let's go to Harris, is his name, on the north side of Chicago. Bank on this call. Hello, Harris.
Hey, Murph, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Big show. I want to say about Iran, I want to see how the referee is going to react tonight when they play on our home court. I wonder if we're going to get the calls same that they were getting at Boston.
Well, 80% of the scoreheads, now it's up to 89%, say that the NBA referees are more intimidated by the home crowd, most intimidated than any other sport out there. So, you know what, Harris? They're going to be blowing the whistle all night on the Celtics, and then Game 7, it'll be right back to the home crowd. I appreciate it very much. Murph, everyone on hold, will get right back to you, back in a flash. Hey, changing over to the big air conditioning system, sophisticated HVAC jobs, plant operations and facility managers like yourself. TheTownGroup.com, Northtown, Westtown, Southwest Town, and Northwest Town. Those are my guys. They do it right. White trucks, red stripes, big jobs. TheTownGroup.com. Back in a flash. Little Bears talk, plenty of baseball, and we'll get right back to which sport is more violent, hockey or basketball. Pretty evident to me.
We now return to the Murph Show, live from Shoeless Joe's Ale House in Rosemont. For more of the Chicago's biggest sports nut live broadcast, presented by Planters Big Nut Bar, Apple Vacations, and Shoeless Joe's Ale House on 670 The Score and 670thescore.com.
I'll get right back to the phones. Which sport is more violent, hockey or basketball? No doubt in my mind, basketball is more violent, more physical of a sport than hockey. At least in hockey, they got pads on, they got a helmet on, they're geared up for that type of thing. You have a little fight in the corner there to settle the issues, and we'll get to plenty of baseball. I don't know who made Todd Hollandsworth the king of Cub fans, but he's out there. Also, we'll talk plenty of White Sox. Boy, if they have double DL, we'll find out later from Mark Gonzalez. They lose Jim Thome and Brian Anderson, bringing up Scott Podds, who's going to be the DH. Lots to cover there. And our text results are staying now at 90%. Which sport are the referees most intimidated by the home crowd? Baseball, 0%. You know, you can say this about baseball umps. They suck. They think they run the world, but they are not. They are so arrogant, they are never intimidated by the home crowd. Football, NFL, hockey, NHL is about 10%. Basketball, 90%. But real quick, let's hit the celebrity line. Let's bring in from ourlads.com a final quick recap. He's been working all week crunching the numbers. It's Dan Schonka over at ourlads.com. Hello, Dan.
How you doing, Murph?
Good. Hey, fans, it's Dan Schonka visits with us all throughout the football season, the draft season. Dan, we're busy in Chicago, as you can imagine, with the Blackhawks and the Bulls, the Cubs and the Sox, but we always have 2 or 3 quick minutes for ourlads.com, Dan Schonka, to quickly, Dan, I'm not going to ask you to give a letter grade. That's such a tough thing to do. But, Dan, I'm going to make it this way. How many future starters for the Chicago Bears do you believe were drafted by Jerry Angelo? And who might they be, in your opinion?
I think there could be 3 for sure, maybe more, but I think you're looking at Gilbert, Jerron Gilbert, the big defensive end, defensive tackle guy. I think Iglesias, the wide receiver from Oklahoma, and then a guy that I love, Marcus Freeman. I think that he's going to make some noise at outside linebacker.
Now, DJ Moore, the cornerback from Vanderbilt, many of our newspaper Bears columnists and writers here said that DJ Moore, will be a future starter, but he's more of a nickel slot cornerback. Can he work his way in someday?
Oh, absolutely. I think that when you're talking about a nickel corner, he could be a guy that could make, because he's a very good athlete.
And let me ask you, they call it the value pick. You know, getting somebody a little lower and grabbing them. I don't know if you buy into that phrase, value pick, Dan Schonka at our lads, but which was the Bears' value pick that they were probably surprised they got him?
Well, Murph, if you don't punish me, I'm going to give you, I think they had more than one. They had, Gilbert, Iglesias, I think Moore, and Freeman. Those were all value picks for that second day.
All right, which guy did they, quote-unquote, reach for? Which guy's the project that you go scratch your head on this one? Boy, that was a little too early.
Well, I think that really they nailed these guys pretty good.
Wow.
I don't know, you can't hardly say Johnny Knox was too early at being a small guy. He's a speed guy. A 5th round, that's where those guys usually go, Murph. And then, Alfalfa from, Oregon State is a real good run support guy. So they got him in the 6th round. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there was really any reaches. I think they nailed these guys pretty good.
Dan, I'll leave you with this. On ourlads.com, you have all your final wrap-ups or reviews. 1-800-PRO-DRAFT. Our guy Dan over at Our Lads. I'll leave you with this question, Dan Schonka. I see where the Bears, 3 of the guys they drafted also either returned punts or returned kicks. We're talking Iglesias returned in college. We're talking about DJ Moore, the cornerback, returned. And we're talking Johnny Knox, the wideout, returned. Not that we had the next Devin Hester here, but will any of these 3 guys ever return punts or kicks other than emergency, do you think?
Well, I think Iglesias definitely. He's got a knack to return kickoffs, Murph. He's done it. He's got a career. He's all-time leading career returner at Oklahoma, which is to say a lot, with like 26-yard average. And then Moore is an excellent punt returner. He averaged 14.4 yards, which is real good in college. And I think Knox would be down the line as an emergency guy. He's not quite as good as the other 2.
Hey, always a pleasure. Tell you what, I'm sending everybody over to ourlads.com, sticking around with our guy Dan Schonka. Dan, we're going to blast back to some Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, and Sox, but we always have a few minutes for some Bears talk from our lads. Thanks for all your support, and we'll visit with you more leisurely soon.
God bless, Murph.
Thank you very much, Dan. Hey, let's get back to the phone lines now. I see the fans are starting to react. Now, they're going, Murph, what kind of question was that? Which sport's more violent? Which sport's more physical? Which sport's more dangerous? The NBA, the basketball player, or the NHL? Let's get to Bob from Munster, Indiana. He says, come on, Murph, you're off your rocker again. Hello, Bob.
How you doing, Murph? You're the man.
Thanks.
Long-time listener. Anyway, the most violent sport definitely has to be whoever has the most medical insurance.
Well, You know what? That would be, I'll have to get my insurance guy, Vuk. I don't think he covers sports teams. But what you say is, hey, let's get behind the scenes, look underneath the tent, like at the circus, take a peek and see who's charging the higher premiums for injuries, to the NHL or to the NBA from the big insurance corporations, right?
You can also start counting the teeth.
Count the teeth. Well, I know Bobby Hall didn't have too many. Hey, good job. Thank you, Bob from Munster. I appreciate it. Let's go to Frankfurt. Don's on the score with Murph. Hello, Don.
Hey, how's it going today, Murph?
Well, good. You know, Don, you hear this statement now 100 times in the last day or two. NBA referees should never determine the outcome of the game in the final minute. In other words, swallow the whistle. Let me ask you. Did they not indeed determine the outcome of the game? They did it by not blowing the flagrant.
Oh, without a doubt, Murph. You know, I got 100% agree with you because, you know what, it almost seems like this is home court advantage to the champions. It's what it seems like to me. But now, you said something at the very beginning of the show, which you took the words out of my mouth. What I would do is start the team tonight with my 5 bench players and go after one of their best. I want to see one of their players get leveled tonight because it ain't going to matter. No doubt they'll probably kick him out of the game. But, you know, what happens in baseball? You know, one of our best guys get hit in the following inning. You
drill pull holes in the hip.
Exactly. You can almost guarantee that somebody from their team is going down.
Now, Don, let me jump on this with you, Don from Frankfurt. I want to be very clear. What I proposed was this. You start the 5 guys who will never get in the game, the Bulls, if you're Vinny Del Negro. Lindsey Hunter, Linton Johnson III, Tim Thomas, Aaron Gray, and a guy named Roberson, who I don't even know his first name. Now,
exactly, Mark.
I'm not advocating violence, but what I'm pointing out is there's a loophole in the NBA rules. Now, if these 5 guys go out there to start the game, and let's just say Lindsey Hunter grabs Rondo, and Aaron Gray gives him an elbow in the jaw and breaks his jaw, what would the referees assess as the penalty? You tell me, knowing the NBA.
Oh, without a doubt.
What would they do? Now, what would the calls be? Tell me.
I would think right off the bat he would probably be fined. He would probably be ejected.
The guy that hit, you mean, you're talking about Aaron Gray?
Right, exactly.
All right, are you going to miss him?
Not really.
Was he going to play?
Probably not.
All right, what about a guy that held him down? Let's say Lindsey Hunter. Double T and throw him out too, right?
I would say so. But,
okay, here's the worst case scenario. You're going to give the Celtics a maximum of 4 free throws, 2 double T's, a flagrant, a ball in out of bounds. You're down 4-0. It's their ball, and Rondo's on a stretcher, and your 2 guys that weren't going to play are in the locker room.
Exactly. You know, like you said, Murph, I don't believe in violence.
Well, no.
But there again, you know, it just seems like fair is fair.
What I'm saying is the NBA would have no control over that scenario other than what we've just said. I got to take a few more calls. Don, thank you very much from Frankfurt. I appreciate it. And we're going to talk plenty of baseball. I don't know why Lou Piniella continues to put on the bench a guy with a 7. You're not scoring any runs, Lou. And you got Coy Hill with a 7-game hitting streak. We're going to talk about baseball big time in the 1 o'clock hour. You got Coy Hill 3 for 5 on Tuesday. You bench him on Wednesday with a 7-game hitting streak. How does that work? How does that happen? And Derek Lee, all he needs is eyeglasses. Just go send him to the eye doctor, Mr. Hendry. It's got to be. Nobody misses in 1 week in the history of baseball at first base 2 perfect pickoff throws and have them both whiff right past you. Perfect knee-high to waist-high pickoff throws about 2 feet off the bag towards second base, right on the money, and he missed them both, and he missed a pop-up push bunt at the about 85-foot mark, 5 feet in front of first base. I've never seen. A little leaguer would miss these. Derek Lee's too good of a player to be missing balls like this. He must not see the damn ball. Let's go to Abe from Lincolnshire on line 4. Hello, Abe.
Shoeless Murph, you're all over the map today.
Oh, well, I always am. I'm just rambling here, just stumbling, bumbling, trying to cover everything in 2 hours for you, Abe.
Well, real quick, couple things. The most violent sport, I would say, is basketball because you don't know what to expect. In hockey, you know what to expect. Football and so on.
And you have protection in hockey.
Correct.
As far as padding and equipment.
Of course, because you know what to expect. So I fought the refs on that, and I will say, following up on what you said, the ref should not determine the outcome of the game in the final minute. No. He should not determine the outcome of the game in any minute of the game. They're supposed to be impartial arbiters of the game.
Hey, but I've already given one call of the show, so I apologize because you're right there in the room. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let's pick a sport, baseball. Do the umpires umpire differently in the ninth inning?
No, they do not.
No, they do. Now, they might be horse crap for the whole game, don't get me wrong, but they don't change in the ninth inning. Let me ask you about the NFL. Final minute of play. You could probably make an argument that they maybe let the cornerback jockey a little more, get his hand in there. But you know what? Overall, do you think the NFL officials change much in the final minute?
No, not at all. Now, here, regarding the violent play, I think back to our good buddy and longtime friend, my favorite player, Norm Van Leer.
Yeah.
I can hear him saying in this upcoming game, I tell you what, Mr. Rondo, you better have your eyes all the way around your head because sometime in this game, you're going to get a bunch of Norm Van Leer in your mouth.
Now,
that's all.
Would you think that Norm would take a forearm on an open drive to a guy in front of everybody? See, Norm was not a dirty player.
No, not at all.
And why the phrase dirty has not been used, I'll use it. Rondo was a dirty play. Many like to use it. It was hard foul. Well, where in the rule book is there a soft foul versus a hard foul? I know they got flagrant.
A flagrant foul is a dirty play. Norm would do it and take care of business, like he would say, in the context of the game, and you know he would.
Thanks, Abe. Phone again, buddy. Good to hear from you. And right here, Casey Johnson, as we take a break, Murph on the road. Everyone will hold it to you. Baseball, big time in the 1 o'clock hour. The NBA's own rule book uses a phrase, unsportsmanlike. If an unsportsmanlike act injures a player, the offended player unable to shoot a free throw, the coach may designate any member of his team. Now, Casey Johnson writes, and I agree with Casey, he says, since Rondo's foul was not called flagrant, the NBA would not consider it unsportsmanlike. So, okay, if you want to argue it was not flagrant, fine. I want to hear you argue that it was a sportsmanlike maneuver to take a forearm to a guy's jaw. That was sportsmanlike, right? Back after this. It's Murph, driven to you by ChevyDriveChicago.com. I don't know who made Todd Hollandsworth king of Cub fans. I don't know.
We now return to the Murph Show, live from Shoeless Joe's Ale House in Rosemont. For more of the Chicago's biggest sports nut live broadcast, presented by Planters Big Nut Bar, Apple Vacations, and Shoeless Joe's Ale House on 670 The Score and 670thescore.com.
It's Murph. We have plenty of baseball coming up right now. Blackhawks and Bulls talk. Well, of course the NBA's in a pickle because they encourage violence. They encourage violence, and their referees understand that they swallow the whistle on flagrant, violent plays. They swallow the whistle. The NBA. So what happens now when the disciplinarian, Stu Jackson, has to make the official announcement, no fine against Rondo, no suspension? Well, duh. That's all they could say. What were they going to do? Come out and say, you know what? It was flagrant. We're going to suspend them. And then you would ask, well, then Game 5 should be awarded to the Bulls because they would have had the ball inbounds, and according to rule, they could have put someone else, Ben Gordon or whoever, to shoot those free throws. So, of course, the NBA is going to say, oh, no, man, no flagrant, no suspension, no fine, no nothing. Let's go back to the phone lines, and Jamie from Wisconsin wants to banter. Yep. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, how's it going, Murph? I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener of you, mainly for the Bears. I'm a Bears fan.
Well, I love my first-time callers. But, Jamie, you have a thought on the flagrant foul, I understand.
Yes, I am a Celtics fan a long time, so I've seen a lot of basketball. I don't think it was a flagrant foul. It was a hard foul. And
let me ask you this. Okay, what's a hard foul? What does that mean? I never understood that. So define hard foul versus soft foul.
Okay, how about when Scottie Pippen, I think it was in the 97 playoffs, got that big bump on the head? That was a hard foul. That one, actually, I don't know if that one was a flagrant, though.
Tell me what a flagrant foul would be, and I don't mean a specific time, but you brought up a great historical moment. Tell me what a flagrant foul is in general. What would it have to be if that wasn't?
Well, unfortunately, in the NBA, and I agree with some of the stuff you were saying, it matters who does it. Like if it was.
So in other words, the rule book doesn't mean jack.
No, I know it doesn't mean jack.
Okay, well, as long as we agree, the rule book doesn't mean jack. Appreciate it, Jamie. Up against the clock phone again. Billy is on the northwest side of Chicago. Hello, Billy.
Hey, Murph, how you doing?
I'm fine, Billy. Which is more violent, hockey or the NBA when you really get down to it?
Yeah, I got two comments. First of all, regarding that, I think it's a no-brainer. The gentleman called a few calls ago and said, well, in hockey, you're prepared for it. I disagree. Ask Patrick Kane in that second game, I believe, where he almost was knocked unconscious, head was almost knocked off, if he was ready for that.
Was Brad Miller ready for it?
No, but I'm just saying, here, how many basketball players are missing teeth?
Who has the helmet?
Well, but even with the helmet, how many basketball players are missing teeth? Even with the helmet,
I don't know. Maybe more than we know. I haven't taken a tooth count.
Well, no, that's number two. Here's my. I think hockey players are amazing for the simple reason. I think they take the physical abuse that football players do, but have to play the next day, where football players have a week to recuperate from their bruises and stuff. These guys are playing the next day sometimes.
Hey, guy like Gordon lands on his back. You don't think he's going to get up? I know the ice is just as hard as the hardwood floor. But I'm telling you, you can get hurt. Let me rephrase it. What sport are you more apt to get hurt in? Probably hockey, or are you apt to get hurt? Look at the NBA this time of year. There's a lot of guys that are out for the year, and just like maybe even as many as hockey.
Well, yeah, but when you say they're out, I mean, a guy can twist his ankle and be out. A guy can pull his, a muscle in his back and be out. It has nothing to do with physical play. Okay. It's just the athleticism that's involved in jumping up and coming down and hurting your knees.
Hey, I'm a big hockey guy. I'm not trying to diminish hockey. Don't get me wrong, Billy.
I'm a fan of both sports.
I know. Let me ask you this. If the NBA allowed these guys to score off in the corner, take a couple pokes at each other until they locked up, and then the refs jumped on them and separated them, would that make hockey more? Would they be less apt to go forearm shiver a guy if Rondo figured someone was going to take off after him later in the corner?
Yeah, but they're not going to do that.
I know they're not going to. That's why they're carte blanche out there, and they're going to just hammer people. I appreciate it. Billy, phone again, and it's Murph. Jay Zawoski.
Yes, Murph.
My clock says we got about 1 minute before the break, then we're going to talk baseball. Do you have that Derek Lee cuts up yet, or should we hold him till Jim Callis in a minute or two?
We got him ready to go. We can do him right here.
All right. I believe that Derek Lee, no one can fall apart as quickly as he has when it comes to not being able to catch a throw. He has missed 3 balls at first base in the last week, 2 on perfect pickoff throws, right past him. 1 hit the ump yesterday, or it would have been an error. Probably they would have given it to the throw over. And that push bunt. Which do we have first, and then which do you have second, Jay?
We have the push bunt in the bottom of the first inning first.
All right, and then right after that, you got the pickoff throw that he whiffed on also, right?
I'll play them right in a row.
All right, bang them together.
Okay.
Well, the Diamondbacks haven't had too much trouble. As Ryan Dempster bunted, and it's fair, and everybody's safe. Derek tried to catch it in the air, and he missed it. And they're at the corners.
Talked about it last night, watching Derek Lee take grounders in batting practice before the ball game last night. He just didn't look comfortable. He got a pretty good jump on that ball. It hit his glove. He just couldn't close the webbing around that ball, and you can clearly see touched it in fair territory. You get a guy like Mark Reynolds willing to give himself up, pushing a bunt to the right side. You'd like to get an out.
Throw to first.
There ain't no roses like it. Anywhere I found. Running south on Lakeshore Drive.
This hour of the score brought to you by Menards. Welcome back. Hour number 2, Murph with you. All right. We'll get back to some Bulls and Blackhawks. By the way, let's do this, Jay Zawoski. Let's have a new text question. Set this up for a yes or no. 67011, Murph with it'll too. 67011, text me. Yes or no? The Blackhawks had more points, better victory points total this year than Vancouver. Vancouver gets the home ice advantage for the 7 games. Yes or no? Should the Blackhawks have received from the NHL the 4 home games? In other words, should, yes or no, the NHL reseed, not your hairline, should they reseed after the first round? Yes or no? Should the Hawks have 4 of the 7 since they had a better point total than Vancouver? All right, let's talk baseball. Let's open up the phone line, 644-6767. Cub fans, very simple. Should Lou Piniella do something different? What would you tell Lou? 644-6767. Cub fans and Sox fans, same phone number. We share the same phone number on the north and south side. Sox fans, 644-6767. You heard the news right there. It's very possible the White Sox will have to put on the disabled list both Jim Thome and Brian Anderson. You bring up Pods. My question to you, Sox fans, who will get the designated hitter at bats? Wilson Betterman looks like the guy right now. That doesn't sound too good. But let's get a guy that really knows baseball. The rubbing line winning. Let's punch it on up. Let's go over to the executive editor, BaseballAmerica.com. It's our guy, Jim Callis. Hello, Jim.
Hey, Murph. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Are you kidding me? Talking some baseball. We got our Hawks. We got our Bulls. We even covered a little more Bears talk. But baseball always number 1 on Murph's list. And Jim Callis. Visit Jim over at BaseballAmerica.com. All right, Jim, sort of general basic question first. 20 games into the season, 21 games into the season right now. The Cubs 10-10, the White Sox a game over 500. I draw the analogy often, Jim Callis, that in the NFL you play 16 games. Each game's got a 10 times value, of a baseball game, sure. 162. If the Bears right now were 1-1, like the Cubs and Sox are basically, 10-10, would you be alarmed right now? Would panic set in? I've heard the word alarmed quite a bit from Cub fans. Not so much Sox fans right now, perhaps, but would you be alarmed for any team in baseball that's 10-10 after 20 games, like a football team 1-1 after 2 of the 16?
No, I wouldn't be alarmed at all. I'm with you, Murph. I mean, even if you take a great team that goes out and wins 110 games over the course of a season, they're going to have stretches where they go 10-10. And, I think the reason we're seeing some alarm from Cubs fans is they're antsy. I mean, winning the division this year alone isn't going to be good enough. They want some playoff wins and getting back to the World Series. And I still think they on paper coming into the year, they looked like they had the best team in the National League. And, as you and I talked, I didn't love all the moves they made during the offseason and the Milton Bradley stuff. The fact that he's hurt and being kind of a pain in the ass, I don't think has been a real surprise. But, could have seen that coming. But I think the alarm also comes from the fact that the Cardinals are off to a hot start. The Cardinals are on a 110-win pace. Well, if you use your NFL analogy, I mean, the Cardinals, you round them off, they're 1-1 too. So I just think fans are disappointed the Cubs are, 3 or 4 games back at this point.
After 81 games, if the Cubs were 40-40, or the White Sox 40-40, and they're 3 or 4 or 5 games behind the pace, would you be alarmed after 80 games?
Well, I'd be maybe a little concerned. Alarmed would be strong, because if if the White Sox are 40-40, they still might be in first place in the Central for that record. If the Cubs are 40-40, the concern on my part would be that they should be better than that. I mean, this Cubs team should win. I would think that, looking at what kind of team they have, a minimum of 90 games, somewhere 90-95 games. So if they're 40-40, then you start to worry. If you're 40-40 and the Cardinals are, maybe 47-34 and 7 games up on you, then you start to run out of a little bit of time.
Maybe the Cardinals will have no injuries this year too.
Yeah, we know that's not going to happen. The Cardinals, I think I said on your show at the beginning of the season, I think they have the best chance to challenge the Cubs.
They can hit.
But I mean, I still look at that rotation. I know Kyle Loshi's pitching well, and Joel Pinero's pitching well.
Right.
I'm not buying that those guys are going to go combined. I think they're 7-0 right now. So what's that, 56-0 for the season? I'm not buying that that's going to happen.
312-644-6767. Jim Callis, couple quick minutes here. Executive editor, BaseballAmerica.com. All right, Jim, rapid fire. First on the Cubs. Coy Hill went 3 for 5 on Tuesday, and he was benched again on Wednesday, and Soto took the collar. Coy Hill has 3 game-winning RBIs. They don't keep that official stat anymore, but 3 game-winning RBIs. But I'll go one better. When Coy Hill, now listen to this. When Coy Hill has started 5 games for the Cubs, they are 4-1. When Soto has started, they are 6-9. I know there's a lot of variables. Who was pitching? Homer Road. Was the cow jumping over the moon? I know all that. But isn't that a sort of interesting number? 4-1 with Coy Hill starting, 6-9 with Soto, or would you disregard that?
Well, I think you used the perfect word there, Murph. Interesting, yes. Meaningful, not really, because Giovanni Soto's not going to hit 119 all season, and Coy Hill's not going to hit 370 all season.
But let me jump in with you on this. In baseball, more than any sport, I think guys get hot because you play every day. You get that 6, 7, 8 game streak cold, 6, 7, 8 game streak hot. After Coy Hill went 3 for 5 and you're still having trouble scoring runs, what would have been wrong with a manager, any manager, saying to the starting catcher Soto, you know what, kid? I'm going to play Hill until he goes 0 for 4. I'm going to play Coy Hill till he takes the collar, as they used to say. And then you're right back in there. So just relax. And Coy, I'll tell him the same, and just play for a while till you cool off. What would be so wrong with that?
Well, I mean, I think it just depends on the player. Like, if you were doing that to Milton Bradley, say, Milton might not like that too much.
Now, this brings up, now here we get to the bottom line, as they used to say. Jim Callis, managers have to handle the star players or the regular players or the Rookie of the Year player differently from the bench player. True or false?
No, that's true, and I think that's what you're saying. I'm not saying that Soto would react violently, but you have to consider that. You know, I will give Piniella credit, Murph. I mean, I think Coy Hill's gotten about, 40% of the playing time, so I think he's done some of that while also trying to, you got to balance it out with, you want to get Soto going at the plate, and if you're not playing him, you know, he's not going to get going. He's just off to a horrible start, but he should snap out of it.
Let's slide in Joe from Stickney on the score, along with Murph and Jim Callis over at BaseballAmerica.com. Hello, Stickney Joe.
Hey, Murph, how you doing? Hi, Jim.
Hey.
You know, they're not playing fundamental ball. That's the thing, too. I know there's a lot of injury on there
What
right
do you
now.
mean? Joe, that's a great word. You're a regular caller, and I hear that a lot from fans. You know, they're not playing fundamental ball. What does that mean, Joe?
Well, Terry, for one thing, forgot how to spray the ball to right field. He's pulling everything or trying to hit a home run to center. It's driving me out of my mind.
Well, you know what? He had a long at bat, 12 pitches, and drove a ball up the middle yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. But there's been a lot of. That's what I'm talking about. Fundamentals. When you got a guy, you got to advance him. They're not hitting to the other side.
All right. Hey, Joe, thanks for getting us rolling here. You know, Jim, that's sort of nebulous, sort of mercurial. It's hard for me to get my hands around that vague phrase, fundamentals. What about you?
Well, I think fundamental baseball is important. It's kind of like chemistry. I think when you're playing well and you're winning games, you seem to be playing better fundamental ball, and you're probably trying to play the same way. But when you're not winning games, then maybe you are pressing, maybe you are trying to pull balls. I don't think they run the bases especially well. But again, I think that stuff kind of goes up and down. I don't think we're having a problem like it just seemed when Dusty Baker was here. I don't know. It just seemed like you had a bunch of pitchers who weren't covering first base, and I think Lou Piniella pretty much does a good job of staying on top of his team in that regard.
Hey, Jim, tell you what, we got a few more callers. I'm up against the clock. Can we hold you for another couple quick minutes?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Beautiful. Tell you what, back at the Ranch Jay Zawaska, let's catch up. When we return, I want to ask a specific Sox question to Jim Callis. We have Cub fans on hold also. It appears that there's a chance that both Jim Thome and Brian Anderson will be put on the DL. We don't know it, but there's the chance. What does that mean with Pods probably coming up? What's the DH rotation for the White Sox? And Jim Callis, last night, pull up the Dodgers-Giants box score. When we return, I want to show you, and you can talk a little bit about what Joe Torre did last night with his starting 9, the batting order from 1 to 9. It could be another new trend. Hang in there, Jim. And a great trend is to get a hold of my guy, Vuk, Jeff Vukovich. I've been telling you about Vuk for years. He's Murph's Nationwide Insurance Agent of the Year. For all your insurance needs, solid family guy, Vuk, 30 years, stable. Hey, there's Vuk right now. You got any business cards, Vuk? Hey, how's your insurance, everybody? There's my guy, Vuk. Oh, look at that. He's got a Nice little sandwich. He's going to run back to the insurance office in about 10 minutes at Park Ridge. He's in and out right here. He's a busy guy. Murph, Sports Radio 670. The score. Hang on, Jim Callis. Hey, our text results. I'm not surprised. 94% of you said, yes, the Blackhawks deserve the home ice. 4 of the 7. They had a better record over the season than Vancouver, but they do not reseed. Maybe tomorrow we'll talk about this. When you get down to it, they have 5 wild card teams and the 3 division winners. Unlike baseball, which would have the 3 division winners and 1 wild card. 94% of you, yes, the Hawks deserve home ice. It's our guy Jim Callis over at BaseballAmerica.com. An unscheduled couple extra minutes for Jim. Hey, James, what's going on these days at BaseballAmerica.com, my friend?
It is draft time for us. The draft does not begin until June 9th, Murph.
Right.
But we are all working feverishly, and I basically spend my days and have for the last 2 weeks on the phone talking to college coaches who know about their players and the high school players in their states and scouts, and I'm basically our main guy for the Midwest. I think I've got something like 40% of the country I'm trying to cover. So.
Well, you guys do the best. You've been doing it from day one. You were the first to do it, and you're still the best. BaseballAmerica.com. All right, Jim, real quick, the White Sox, the injury bug may have really hit them. We'll find out. They have the off day today, so they don't technically have to announce anything until tomorrow, but Brian Anderson had to leave the game in the middle of an at-bat. Looked like a rib cage, abductor muscle, whatever they call it. He said to paper today it tugged on him in the second inning. Then his next at-bat, he had to leave the game. Jim Thome with a bad heel bruise. He had to take an injection, according to the paper. He may be DL'd also. What will the Sox do with that 25-man, and how will it affect day-to-day if they have to DL both their starting center fielder and their designated hitter?
Well, DL and Anderson, I think, would really, really hurt because as we talk, just like every week we talk about what the White Sox can do in center field. And, if they bring Podsednik up, one, he's not on the 40-man roster. It seems like that's what they're leaning towards doing. So they have to designate somebody for assignment or move somebody to the 60-day disabled list. And right before I came on your show, I was just reading something my friend Ed Price wrote over at the AOL Fan House where he talked to a scout about Podsednik who said that Podsednik looked terrible and that his speed is below average now, that he had him running below average times down the line to first base. So I think Podsednik in center field could be, not very good defensively at all. Brian Anderson's actually hit decently, but even when Anderson doesn't hit, he plays you pretty good center. So I don't think that's a long-term solution. They better hope that Anderson's injury is not something more than 2 weeks or so.
All right, now hold that thought. You could put Podsednik in left field and Carlos Quentin in center still, right?
You could, and I've advocated, even that as a move to do before guys got hurt if they weren't getting enough offense. Quentin has played center field. He's not your prototype center fielder, but he has good instincts. He moves well enough, and I think you could do that and put a lesser. You probably get a better bat than Podsednik and put him in left field if you want. That might be better for the lineup too.
Now, as far as Jim Thome, if they have to DL him as their designated hitter, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll plug in a new DH. What are your different options? You got Konerko, Dye. There's a lot of things Ozzie could do. What are some of them?
Yeah, those are a couple. You could, in AAA, again, this guy's not on the 40-man roster. Their best hitter in AAA right now has been Andy Phillips, who could play first base. You could, hope to gamble and ride his hot hand and maybe put Konerko at DH. Brandon Allen down in AA.
Right. They love him.
He's one of their best prospects, legitimate power. He's off to a good start. You got Beckham, off to a solid start in AA too. And you could do some things with Beckham and maybe put Alexi Ramirez in center field. But I don't think, Murph, you really call up Brandon Allen unless you're calling him up with the idea that he might be sticking around for a long time rather than just a couple weeks. And the same thing with Beckham. I don't think you call up Beckham and move Alexi to center.
Right.
Just for 2 weeks and then move everybody back down.
Wow.
Around. I think those are things you do for the long term.
Now you could DH Konerko one day and play Betterman at first. You could then DH Fields like they did in the doubleheader one day, but Betterman at third. You could DH Jermaine Dye, but if they're sending down Jerry Owens with Dwayne Wise hurt and Anderson out, they only have 3 outfielders as it stands right now?
You can let Lilbridge is pretty athletic. I mean, again, I don't think you'd want him, playing in the outfield every day. But he's played. I think he's even played 3 innings in center for the White Sox this year. You could see him in the outfield. It could be that Ozzie will just use the DH spot as kind of a revolving door and move guys there to kind of give him a day off in the field.
What about this? The DH could be the leadoff hitter if Chris Getz, with the bad finger, would be able to bat but not field because of the throwing hand finger. You could DH. It's unorthodox, but you could DH your leadoff hitter as Getz.
Yeah, he's having a good year so far. I mean, definitely. I mean, I think that's what you may see him do because they have enough guys banged up that maybe you just use a DH spot to rest guys or get them healthy.
Okay. And final, Jim Callis, BaseballAmerica.com. Check it out right now. Jim, I hear your music in the background. We're up against the clock, but Joe Torre last night did what Tony La Russa's done and what the Brewers have done with the best hitter in baseball, Manny Ramirez, in the 3-hole. He gave his center fielder, Matt Kemp, the night off. Juan Pierre was in the batting order. Joe Torre did it. He batted his pitcher, Stultz, number 8. First time since 1965 the Dodgers pitcher has not batted 9th. Don Drysdale batted 7th in 65. I heard Vin Scully last night. But Jim Callis, what he did was Juan Pierre in the 9-hole. And that really makes Manny Ramirez your cleanup hitter once they go around the lineup. And what do you know? Pierre gets on in the 7th and the 9th and starts rallies even though they did not win the game.
I think it looks great when it works out like that and Pierre's getting on base for him. Sure. I don't think it really makes a big difference in the long run. I mean, ultimately what you're doing, Juan Pierre's not a very good hitter now anyway.
No, that was a one-time thing, though, to rest Kemp.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to do now and then. I mean, I think you want your best hitters, batting roughly order how good they are. So I would usually want my pitcher batting 9th, even if I have Manny Ramirez in the 3 slot.
But that makes Manny your cleanup hitter when Pierre bats 9th, once they turn it over.
Right, but I mean, Juan Pierre's got a base percentage of about 300. And, the problem is I got my pitcher batting the 8th, and I might have to pinch hit for the guy earlier than I want. There are days when you do that, and it works against you. It's one of those things, I think some days it works out well where the lineup turns it over like you want, and other days you keep having your pitcher spot come up, and you have to pull pitchers from the games. It's great for you and me to talk about or writers to write about, but I don't think it's a great long-term strategy. I don't think it makes a big difference either way in the long run.
Appreciate it. Jim, you're the best. Thanks for staying overtime here.
No
we'll
problem.
visit with you almost every Thursday. When you have minutes available, you know that we are always open door for you. Thanks a lot, James.
Thanks, Murph.
All right, buddy. BaseballAmerica.com. It's Murph back in a flash. Hey, we're going to get a little White Sox talk next with Mark Gonzalez from the Chicago Sun-Times. Everyone on hold, we'll get back to you. It's The Score. I'm driven to you by Chevy. Drives Chicago.com. On the home stretch. Wait, look at our text results. I'm shocked. It's dropped down now to 74% of you say yes, the Hawks should have the 4 games on the home ice, having beaten the Vancouver points in the season. 60711 is our text number. Yes or no, should the Hawks receive home ice advantage, Celebrity Line ring? And he said he'd give us a call. He's got a big event tonight. Let's go to Chicago Sun-Times White Sox beat reporter. It's Mark Gonzalez. I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't want to move you over there. How you doing, my friend?
Otherwise, I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good. That's probably digesting from the update right there. Some of the different beat reporters like yourself trying to figure out over there right now at the Tribune what in the heck is going to be the 25-man roster, Mark. And then we're going to talk about your book, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and your big appearance tonight in Forest Park over at your great friends, our good friends at Centuries and Sleuths, the book signing, 7400 block, West Madison, tonight at 7:30. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But all of a sudden, a couple injuries could be biting the White Sox, huh?
Yeah, Jim Thome hasn't been in the lineup lately, but yet he brings a presence to the lineup. And without him, we will probably see some more mixing and match, and Ozzie's already done that already, giving guys rest in the form of playing designated hitter. Yesterday it was Josh Fields. Before it was Bennett and Konerko. You probably see more of that. And with Brian Anderson, even if he's not severely hurt enough to be on the DL, you'll see Ozzie give him a few more days off.
Every team every general manager, Mark Gonzalez, of course, has to prepare, wants to have that 25-man, that 40-man ready for the ultimate injuries, the inevitable injuries that you're going to have in the long season. Nobody finishes with the same 25-man they started with. Heck, most teams have multiple turnover. And be it the Cubs or the Sox or any other team, you just, these days, it's almost impossible, I guess is my yes or no question mark, it's almost impossible to have everything covered. On the north side, Ramirez, it's the one spot Jim Hendry really didn't feel like he had a full-time third baseman waiting in the wings. It's impossible to have one of those guys. The Sox, same thing. You can't really prepare for 2 or 3 center fielders either going down or not succeeding. You thought you had inventory there, and a DH, you don't just shake a tree and find a new Jim Thome either, do you?
No, you don't. And you think you're insulated from within when it comes to injuries, but you're really not. Remember 2 years ago, Toby Hall got hurt, and they had to rely on Gustavo Molina, and it just wore AJ down. So even with your backups, you have to have secondary and more depth of that sort.
Would there be Chris Getz? I try to keep up on this. He was not DL'd. He's still day-to-day, right?
He should be back. He was ready to pinch hit in, I believe, was the 6th inning, had that inning not turned around so quickly. But once they tied the game, they decided not to use Chris, but he was available last night.
Now, thinking outside the box, if you lose Jim Thome, there's no rule that says your DH has to be a thumper. You could, if you wanted to, or be creative if you're Ozzie, or, try something different. You could keep Lillibridge at second, bat him number 9 as he has been occasionally, and you could DH Chris Getz and lead him off.
That's not a bad idea, especially because he injured the finger while taking throws at second base. You're kind of limiting his requirements as far as the hand, and if he just bats, that's alleviating some of the pressure off his finger.
Hey, Mark, I listened to Coop here on the Score. Don Cooper, Sox pitching coach, and it wasn't his philosophy, but he said this morning, you know what? He says, we're getting 4 out of 5 good starts from all our guys. He said, off the top of my head, he said, I'm having my first cup of coffee. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, Coop said, but, if I get 4 out of 5 nice starts, be it quality starts or however you define a nice start, Mark Gonzalez, if I get 4 out of 5 from Hosey and from Cologne and my big 3, that's really that's a recipe to win the division, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. You look at when you're able to limit Line Brink's appearances and not have to tax Thornton being the primary lefty in the bullpen. That's because these starters are pitching into the 7th inning, and that's going to bode well down the stretch.
Hey, Mark, let's talk about the book you have out. And what's great about the good, the bad, and the ugly, heart-pounding, jaw-dropping, gut-wrenching moments from Chicago White Sox history, Mark Gonzalez with me from the Chicago Tribune, is there's a little bit in here for everybody. As I thumbed through it the other day and look at the different chapters, you got chapters for the fans from the 1959 White Sox, the great 70s show, the Bill Veeck era, back to the Black Sox, White Sox scandal, draft dude, but your Ozzie Guillen chapter. I mean, that had to be one of the more fun things. You didn't have to do a lot of research to come up with your Ozzie Guillen chapter in your book, did you?
Now the secret's out. I kept all the tapes since I've been covering this team in 2005, so that made it easy. I will admit to that.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'd maybe like to. Of course, we'd have to use our bleep filter here probably to play some of those on the Score. You're going to be visiting with the fans, signing your book. You're going to be in Forest Park there in the western suburbs on Madison at 7419 West Madison tonight at 7:30. Centuries and Sleuth Books right there in Forest Park. And you'll be visiting with the Sox fans at 7:30 tonight, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Hey, one last thing, Mark. Why the day? This is like the MLB schedule. I don't know that this is something that you would have on your beat at the Tribune. But I was trying to figure out, the Mariners have the day off today. The White Sox had the day off today. But yet it was a day game yesterday. And here on the Score, of course, it was sort of, Murph got a little time off. I got to leave a little early, not that I wanted to. Why would that have been a day game yesterday? Any idea?
I think there are certain rules in the Players Association with the last basic agreement where players, there's some requirements. I don't know if it applies to this one where the getaway day has to be a day game. I know a lot of players were looking forward to today as an off day. A lot of them flew home yesterday, so I can only suspect they weren't going to be too eager about playing today.
Well, see, today was an off day. What I meant was it wasn't really a getaway day.
Right.
Yesterday. But probably, like you say, the Players Union. Mark, one last thing. I was so wrong on the defense of Jermaine Dye, and I've apologized to Jermaine on the air. And, you know, it's just like a writer like yourself, we have the responsibility on the radio to risk being wrong on occasion. I'm wrong more than I'm right, I'm sure, if someone was keeping tabs. But, you know, Jermaine Dye, he's been getting better and better, as opposed to, you know, I thought he'd be deteriorating, his legs, his defense in right field. In fact, here's a soundbite from yesterday. Jay Zawoski, let's trigger this. Jermaine Dye all over the field again yesterday.
A little more direct route, and he's directing his ball towards home plate, which is hit hard and deep to right field. Jermaine Dye diving to his left in front of the warning track, makes a great catch, picking up Gavin Floyd.
Saw a lot of white there, Darren, with the ball sticking out of the glove, right in the palm of his hand. Dye made the catch and got up and showed it to the first base umpire, Jeff Nelson, who was all the way down the line to make the call.
And I got to say, Jermaine Dye, last season and this year, he seems to have not lost anything in right field.
No, he's doing a nice job. He's, and I've said it before, I think he's the best athlete, meaning he could do a number of things on a baseball field, but also play a number of sports, including basketball and golf. Not that golf is going to tax you, but he could walk 18 holes with no problem and still play well.
Yeah.
Those are our guys on the score. Eddie Farmer, DJ, talking about Jermaine Dye with Murph and Mark Gonzalez. Dial hit a home run there in the seventh inning to sort of lock the game up, made it 5-3. This guy's amazing. Tell us a little bit about, on a day-to-day basis, he's got to be one of those first guys there and last guys to leave, I'm guessing, Mark.
Yeah, you almost take him for granted. And Murph, if you saw him in spring training, you would wonder how much he had left in the tank. But this guy has really turned it on, because I don't think he batted over 200 this spring, which goes to show that spring training stats mean nothing. But
right.
It seems like he's saved his legs pretty well for the regular season, because you see him making diving catches, get the balls that a lot of right fielders wouldn't get to.
And you know what? He next year, even though contracts, who knows what's going to happen a year from now, he would be a guy that you could make a DH and a great leader on the club for a couple more years, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, if he's not here, somebody's going to want him and get a pretty good player.
Hey, Mark, great to take a minute away from your busy day at the Tribune, White Sox beat reporter. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Fun, very, very good book. And, Mark, some great photos in there also for all Sox fans, young and old. Say hi to Mark Gonzalez tonight over at Centuries and Sleuths Bookstore, Forest Park, right there, 7419 West Madison. Mark will be there at 7:30. Hey, thanks for a few minutes on your a rare day off right there, Mark.
Murph, take care.
Thank you very much, my friend. Let's do this. I want to hear from some Blackhawks fans. I want to talk a little bit more. Right now, I got a 74%. How come it's not 100%? Text me 67011 and phone me. I'd like to hear from you, 644-6767. What do you think of the NHL with their non-reseeding methodology of not awarding the Blackhawks the best-of-7 home ice, even though I understand Vancouver won the stinking division, the Hawks with a better point record over the course of the season, and they start on the road. Unbelievable. It's the score. Back after this. This hour of the score brought to you by Menards. I don't know what we'd do if the Sox were playing tonight. Cubs, Sox, Bulls, Blackhawks. Everybody would need 4 televisions. Cubs with a 4-game series at home with the always tough Florida Marlins starting tonight. Sox with the day off, as we mentioned, down to Texas Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Blackhawks, best of luck in Vancouver. Let's pick up 1 out of 2 there and bring it on back to Chicago. And the Bulls with the big Game 6 tonight. Vinny Del Negro, you know what's at stake, don't you, Vinny?
They're 1 game up, so we know what we have to do. And, you know, our whole thing all year has been no excuses. I mean, you know, we know what's at stake, and we know how we need to play.
Yeah.
And now we need to execute the game plan on both ends, defensively and offensively, and get after it.
Yeah, just bring a 2x4 out and hit Rondo upside the head. What do you have to do to win tonight that's legal?
we're at home. It was a tough game last time, double overtime. But I expect our fans to be behind us. I expect the guys to come out and be hungry. And we're at home. We should get it back to Boston for Game 7, and then anything can happen. But it's easy to talk about. It's hard to do. We have to be ready to play and raise our level.
Maybe a Louisville Slugger upside Rondo's head. How about the league? They're reviewing that flagrant foul, Vinny.
Well, I think it definitely is a flagrant foul. I mean, I just think, when a guy gets, hit in the mouth and gets 10 stitches and,
hard foul.
I saw Dwayne Wade's flagrant foul last night in Atlanta, and I didn't think that was a flagrant foul. So he barely seemed like he hit the guy. So, you can't worry about that. You got to get ready to play the game, and, hopefully the officiating is consistent for both sides.
Maybe to do this flagrant foul, a 1, a 2, a flagrant foul, a 3, hard foul, soft fouls, all different kind of fouls. How about BJ? How about Ben Gordon? How's the leg?
I don't think he's worse, but I don't think he's any better. I'm not sure he'll get better until he gets a lot of time off. So hopefully he can, battle through it again tonight. I know he's in pain, but he's such a weapon for us. We need him out there. So if he can go, it'll be great.
Here's the thing: the team's pissed off, and they're ready to win Game 6 and 7. Go Blackhawks! Also, Murph saying thanks for listening, thanks for calling. See you later, everybody.